Episode number 232. Are these comics going to make good film and television shows? We have Batman and Robin, number 20, and we have Aquaman, number 4. Two DC books. Let's check them out right now. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you so much for spending time with me as we rant about movies, comic books, and television shows, as well as the occasional board game. I'm your host, Frank Zanca. I'm an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer, as well as a filmmaker. And yes, getting back on set at 6 a.m. on Monday. What? I have to get up at 4 a.m. I haven't done that in a really long time. I'm trying to train myself because normally I don't even go to bed until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning normally. It's been a chore trying to get myself to get up at 4 a.m. Just the last few days, trying to train myself because I am going to be on set for 12, 13 hours a day. All right, but let's check this out. Before we do, remember to give a like and a subscribe if you can. I do release videos every day, but I will be on hiatus for these 2 weeks, which I'll be on set. And but yeah, definitely check that out. And if you can share this video out there, that would be awesome also. I do at least a 2 or 3 of these episodes per week, as well as Frank Ranks, which I rank the episodes for the books for the week, which I probably still will do because I still have my weekends off. Also, if you want to go to Amazon.com and type my name in, you'll see the stuff that I've written if you want to check any of that out, including my sci-fi quadrilogy, Destiny Aurora. There's also a comic version of that, and a board game, and an RPG. And then I have my fantasy book, Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch. I'm working on a new book right now called Battle for the Ruby Slippers. And then on top of that, I have a new comic we're going to be releasing probably in a couple of months on Kickstarter called Fairy Tales of Terror. All right, so let's jump into Batman and Robin. This, I gotta say that this is kind of dragging. You know, it was on a good pace, but it's starting to crawl. I hope they really wrap this up. I don't know why these writers insist on dragging these stories out for like 12, 13, 20 issues. I know this one hasn't gone on for 20 issues, but I think we're on like issue 8 of this story. I don't know why he's pushing it, because I think the last one ended at like 12 or 13. So, yeah, we're already past 6 for sure. So 6 is kind of where I think the limit should be for a story. After that, it feels like it drags. And I don't know why. As a writer, I wouldn't want my story to feel like it drags. So this is the story of Memento. Meanwhile, Damian is, because of him, a young girl was hurt. It wasn't really because of him, but he treated her poorly. So he has an internal conflict of guilt because she was hurt. She didn't die. I thought she died originally, but she didn't. And there's a back and forth right now storyline because the Memento character, the villain here, which I really don't understand. That's one of the things, too. I don't understand this villain. He's just nebulous. We don't ever see from the point of view of the villain. We don't know what his motivation is. We don't have anything except that he kills and he has some kind of a gas, like a hallucinogenic, kind of like the Scarecrow, which is actually a derivative of the Scarecrow's thing as well. So it's getting him to see things and stuff like that. But, when he was a younger man, when he was going through training, one of these guys trained him, and they went after the Memento, and it ended up that he was arrested for the murders of Memento, although I don't think any of his students actually thought that he was the killer. So one of the students has now become a detective, I think for Scotland Yard or whatever. But anyway, she is now in America and teamed up with Robin to find this thing. So meanwhile, Robin's like, maybe I want to be a doctor because Bruce gave him the journal of his father. Of course, Thomas Wayne was a doctor. So this is, I call this a very experimental comic. Although I really they should have left the experimental design to only half the book, because I don't feel like this book goes anywhere. So this is the journal of Thomas Wayne or whatever else that they're reading. And yes, Thomas Wayne's journal, May 12th, where he talks about Bruce, and he talks about the fact that he doesn't feel like he's a good dad, because every time that Bruce wants to spend time with him, he's working. He promises that he's going to go float these paper boats with him, and he doesn't. And when he asks Alfred what he should do, he says, I know you'll do what's right, and that he kind of just leaves it at that. So we start out with that, so it's all kind of experimental to begin with. Then we actually see some stuff going on in the real world, with the team kind of searching because Robin is missing. Meanwhile, Batman is still infected with this hallucinogenic, where he's seeing all these people on fire, and he's seeing past. He's seeing Gotham's past and these various, destructive things that have happened. So he sees Robin's monkey, and I don't mean that derogatory, in a derogatory fashion. But he ends up finding his book. Now this is where it doesn't make any sense, and this is where it gets experimental. So Robin, or Damian, is drawing cartoons. He's drawing like anime. But why would he draw himself as Robin? Because then if anybody picked this thing, if anybody found this thing, it would give everything away. It would give away their secret. It makes any sense. He would have definitely changed it to a fictional character, something he made up. But this doesn't make any sense. So the whole rest of the issue is him paging through Robin and Batman, which is drawn supposedly by Damian, where he talks about his adventures with Batman. He talks about Memento. He talks about all this stuff. He talks about being given the journal. And then we talk about his mentor now at the hospital, who I think just turned up dead. I think he's dead now because Robin was taken. And we get a little monster thing going on here that was representative, etc. But that's the whole book. And then he talks about the other detective that Bruce trained with that doesn't know he's Batman. And he talks about somebody that comes to the Waynes and gives them quests, basically to become a man, I guess. And there's Memento again, but that's the whole book. It's just Batman paging through this, looking for a possible clue to where Damian might be. And then we see this book, and that's where the clue ends up being. And he talks about how his life could be different, etc. Which technically it is different, because he was really not treated well by the League of Assassins, that's for sure. And then he has an hallucination of Alfred, who tells him to look on the shelf. And that's the Memento case book, I guess, that the other guy did. And that's it. That's the entire issue. So I don't really feel like we did anything here. I think that this was an experimental book. What if we went through all of Damian's things? That's probably what Phil Kennedy Johnson was thinking. But I would have been fine with that for like three pages or whatever. But instead we get that whole issue where the story goes nowhere. Again, that's why it feels like it's doing this. I'm just chugging along, waiting for 12, 13, 20 issues before we can finally... Tom Taylor was the worst at that, man. He would never close up a story, ever. Until he was finally off the book. And then he's like, oh, maybe I should finish this up. So I'm hoping that this thing ends up quick, because I like it, but I'm feeling like can I just buy a trade and know how it ends? So I hate to drop it, but I need this thing to close up, man. I'm getting tired of it. All right, so let's talk. And I think that'll make a good film too. I like everything that's going on. It would need to be really compacted. That's the thing. Nobody would do a film. You'd have to really work to make this into a film because it's all over the place. You know, I think that comic writers have forgotten how to compact stories. So, all right, let's talk about Aquaman. So, I was there. If you're here for the first time, Aquaman is my favorite character in comics. I have a bunch of stuff behind me. I've read all the Paul Levitt stuff. I've read all the Jeff Johns stuff from Rebirth, Dan Abnett. All that stuff is great, and it feels like Aquaman. However, this, and I love Jeremy. He and I are friends, but that doesn't mean I can't talk. But this doesn't feel like Aquaman to me. In fact, I was watching Thinking Critical today, and he and Drew were talking about it because I'm noticing that non-Aquaman fans are really loving this. And that's great. But Aquaman fans like me, I hate it because it's not my Aquaman. But they brought up something that was pretty poignant, and I'm like, maybe that's it. What they said, I think Drew said this, is that this is really because he's so violent in here, and he's got a totally different personality. There's a totally different. I mean, it's almost there. He's almost doing Arthurian stuff with it, where he's got the lady from the lake in it and all this other stuff. They said this really feels like a absolute Aquaman, and that's how I feel about it. Is that this is not Aquaman. This is absolute Aquaman. And yes, like I said, he doesn't act the same. Nothing. So Atlantis is disappeared. He's trying to find it because of the whole storyline there that Mark Waid did with Absolute whatever. They all switch powers, so now he has Mera's powers like Superman. Lois has Zod's powers. I hate all that. But anyway, he's still looking for them, but he has. In fact, there's Aquaman without. I think the artwork's only okay here, but there he is without his beard and mustache, which I absolutely hate because they had to make him look like a Moa to some extent. And then I was like, oh my God, Mera's in this book, yes, but it was fleeting. It says wake up, and that's it. That's the only time we see Mera. So he's captured. This is only issue 4. And he's now been captured twice. Anyway, he's captured, and he's got to figure out how to get out. And he asks this mermaid where the Atlantis is. And she says, well, if I tell you, it would be like killing you because I guess it's so bad. And they're in space on a water. I don't even know what the fuck that is. I have no idea what that is. So that's, again, where it doesn't feel like Aquaman. We're now in this void on a river. I don't know what's going on. So he's got some kind of chains, the magical chains that he can't break. And they're taking him, I guess, to wherever they're going. But I guess now the lady from the lake changes his, and I'm going to get into this, changes his trident into a sword. But where it can change back. And it changes back by the top, the prongs sliding up. And Jeremy did a video on this, sliding up and then clicking in so it goes back, or you can click it off and then he comes down into a hilt. Okay? And I'll just keep that in mind right now because I'm going to show you something where that doesn't work. And I'm really surprised that Wes and Drew like that because they're both military people and it just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so he decides that he can get in down through the floor if he can use Mera's powers and take the moisture out of all of the wood and dry the wood. Okay. So he dries the wood, except it's like, where he's at is the floor, not the side of the ship. So where he's at, he would have to take the moisture out from the entire sea to get out. Because the floor is good. So if you're in a ship, because it's not it's not hovering, right? Because it's actually in the water, which means that if it's floating in this weird sea thingy, then where he's at, if he's in the hull, because he could break right through, that's submerged. So this whole thing doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But then he goes into this weird thing where he's seeing Atlantis upside down. I don't even understand. I don't understand any of that. Because it's getting too weird, which is not what Aquaman was. So he decides that he's going to look at wherever he's trying to go. He's just trying to escape at this point. But all the mermaids come at him, and he uses this circle thing to get away. But then his friends catch up with him and give him, like Lady the Lake, give him the sword, which is the trident, which is also, now look at that. Okay? It looks like it has edges. Okay? Right? It has a blade. All right? Keep that in mind. So, yep, it definitely looks like it has edges. But it goes back into being a trident. But he goes through the entire ship and basically cuts it in half. For whatever freaking reason. So, okay, so there, boom. He clicks it back. See, he pushes the trident prongs forward, and it clicks into this, right? And now, see how the first three things, he shows you how he puts it back and forth. And then he slings it around. It makes no sense. Because this is round. Or else he wouldn't be able to grip it. Right? Because then it would be a blade. It would be cutting his hand. So, this is my Aquaman here. All right? That's true Aquaman as far as I'm concerned. And we'll take this staff out. Okay? Of course, this is a lot more ornate than what his is. But what he's saying is that this prong can click and then come down, right? Where it turns into a guard, right? But how does this turn back and forth into a blade? It doesn't make any sense. And if it's magic, right? Because I can almost buy, and I know Jeremy's trying to think out the box and give Aquaman some extra stuff, but this is not it. That's not the way to do it. Because if you watch his video, he says, all right, it just goes up and down, right? And it clicks in. But it doesn't make any sense because this would be round, right? Or if it's a blade, then he wouldn't be able to grip it. But the whole thing is, what the hell's the difference? What's the difference between having a sword and having a trident? Because all these are blades here. It can still cut stuff. And all you got to do is grip it down the bottom and you have a sword anyway. In fact, it's probably better than a sword because you can block it by holding it. So, I know he's trying to get the box to make Aquaman different. This is not it. Now, if he said that it was because it was the trident of the gods, like Poseidon or whatever, and it does magically change, then he doesn't need it to slide up and down. It just alters. It alters to what he wants it to alter to. But then it's just magic. But he's trying to make this look like it's a physical change. And it just doesn't work. It's just not logical. So yeah, but is this going to make a good movie? No, this isn't. It's the good thing about the Aquaman movies is that at least James Wan was creating the world. I think he did a really good job making the world. I thought Black Manta was done well. The last movie, having this God in the ice thing made no sense. Of course, the whole thing with Mara, with Amber Heard not even be able to be in it, so it's very obvious about where they cut him out. The whole thing with the baby was from the Paul Levitz thing, but he actually got killed in the comics. The baby was killed. And in the first movie, the world they built, but Momoa is just not Aquaman. And this is not Aquaman. So eventually we might get a new Aquaman movie, but I'll be dead by then. I won't have to complain about it anymore because I'll be gone off this planet. And Batman and Robin, yeah, I like where this is going, but it's got to close up, and it's just too much already. It's just too much. All right, well, that's it for me. Remember to give me a like, give me a subscribe if you can. And if you can, ring that bell, ding, ding, subscribe. That would be great, too. And share this video out there. Get notified when I put up other videos. And give me that, I said like, subscribe already. I'm duplicating myself. Well, have a great week, everybody. And I guess I'll see you in about a week after my movie's done. All right? See you guys soon. Have a great week.